it's Jill here, and I'm really excited for a special edition and an interview today. Not often do I get to invite one of my very closest and dearest friends onto the show, so I'm really excited to have her today. Joining us is our guest host. She is a pastor, she's a singer, she's a mental health advocate, and I'm really excited to also, like I said, call her one of my best friends in the world, Danielle Rivas. She joins us now from Phoenix, Arizona. So
thank you for having me.
It's a mixed blessing to have you on, right? Because I'm really excited to have you on, but we're talking about something that's really heavy on a lot of hearts right now. And I know that your story is one that is very personal, and I just kind of want to have a conversation and talk about mental health in general. This has been a really, really interesting week, a sad week, you know, when we look back and see some of the turn of events. We saw Jared Wilson die by suicide. He took his own life unexpectedly. I saw something that he was actually even officiating at a funeral earlier that day for a young woman who had also died by suicide. And now, you know, his wife and his two young children are dealing with the aftermath of that. But I know that this is a topic that's been, you know, not just suicide in general, but mental health. It's been a big part of your testimony.
Definitely a huge chunk of my testimony.
Your story involves a lot of trauma, some of it even from birth and as a very young child. And that's really kind of shaped a big part of who you are as a pastor and an educator.
The enemy really came against my mind and my purity at such a young age, trying to just really break me down. You know, some of the things I'm going to share today are going to be a little rough, but I feel like it's the truth that sets people free. There's so many instances that led up to, you know, maybe a nervous breakdown or panic attacks. But, you know, when I was little, I want to start by saying, you know, I was introduced to pornography at like age 2. Like I was such a pure child. Like I can't explain it. It really did something to my heart. It really brought in some torment, and I was bullied, you know, for the way that I looked and my nose, and I had acne and all these things. And I just remember between, you know, some chaos in my personal life as a child and then chaos at school, like I pulled out all my eyelashes and eyebrows. And like, I love my family dearly, but the foundation that was set, you know, was just not the most peaceful foundation. And everybody's broken, you know, everybody has issues. It's not like there's no finger point. Like who I am today is because of what I got to walk through. The Lord was always there. And I didn't know about the prophetic or anything, but he was always speaking to me. Like now I look back and I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. All of that was just the foundation of just, you know, like being tormented, being sifted, and also having like, you know, this mental illness, you know, the chemical imbalance that ran in my family. When I was about 21 is when I actually had my first panic attack, anxiety attack, and I had to quit my job. There's so much shame in it. You know, and shame is what keeps you from actually wanting to move forward. And it's really what keeps you in bondage. So
that's interesting, Danielle, because I saw another report about Jared Wilson, and it said that he had actually, you know, he was very active on social media. And he had actually said, you know, you can't ever be cured from mental illness, no matter how strong your faith is. Is that something that you actually believe? And tell us a little bit about, you know, how you came to why you believe what you do believe.
And, you know, I was healed of mental illness. I was miraculously healed of mental illness. Wasn't in a moment. It was a process. I believe that if you really follow the process of God's heart for you specifically in whatever way that looks like, then he will heal you. And I just want to tell people there's a difference between miracles and healing. A miracle happens right away. Healing can take time. So I do believe that you can be healed of mental illness, but I also believe that you can't do it alone. You have to be very vulnerable. You have to have a good team, whatever that looks like for you.
What advice would you give? You touched a little bit about the judgment within even the Christian community, right? About medication. So what advice would you give to somebody maybe that's struggling and they feel they're in a bad place because they need medication right now? Does that mean that they're doing something wrong? Does it mean that they're failing? Does it mean that they just don't have enough faith? What would you say to them?
I would say have as much grace for yourself as you would have for somebody else and as God has for you. Because, I have physical illness in my body that God hasn't fully healed. And I have to take medication for that. And there's been times where I have been prayed for and they talk about the gift of faith and quit your medicine. And God's like, listen, you'll know the moment I ask you to stop something, but I need you to have grace for yourself in this process. So addressing medication, I want people to understand that whether you're on medication for a little bit or you're on medication for a lifetime, either way, it doesn't make you less than. I have an amazing psychiatrist and I still go to him for my soul. I still go to him, like if anything's needed, I don't care. Like,
what would you have wanted your family and your friends to say to you that would encourage you? How could they have supported you? Maybe somebody's watching right now that has a family member or a friend and they're just lost. They don't know what to do. And so it's not just affecting the person who's struggling with it, right? It branches out. So what advice would you kind of have for them to help them on that journey?
I think sometimes people just need to be listened to.
Yeah.
It's less than, like in this culture, it's all about noise, right? And everybody's talking to us. And what's really lacking is giving a voice to the voiceless. So I would encourage families to just listen. And I would encourage families and spouses that if you don't understand, go to a counselor, go to a psychiatrist, sit in on some of these. But half the time, the spouses and the family feel more hopeless than even the person because they're watching it. We need to stop feeling like we have to fix everything. We don't have to fix everything. Like nobody could fix me when I was where I was at. Only God could.
So, and my family has struggled with mental illness as well. I have personally struggled with severe depression and anxiety. I have several family members that go back generations that were bipolar and diagnosed as bipolar. And so I think that when you're around those situations, there's no clear winner. And that's really what motivated me to kind of want to do this story and share a big part of your testimony, because it's so inspiring that you're able to not only share these personal experiences, but that you also have this ability to share them in a practical way without condemning anyone, right? The whole goal is that we want people to actually raise their hand and say, hey, I need help. I can't manage this. I don't know what to do it. We want to get to that place before, we're talking about someone who took their own life, right? And that's kind of the whole goal of this, is just to provide resources. And one resource that I personally have found really valuable is your weekly devotional, Danielle. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and where do people go to sign up for that, and how do they find you?
Yeah, so I have a ministry called Rivers of Love Ministries, and so it's riversofloveministry.com, and you can go on there. There's YouTube videos, and you can sign up for the weekly devotional, and there's prophetic songs that I release that I just basically I record songs of my own time with the Lord, and I, just about where I'm at, so I find that helps people. The more resources we have to encourage people, the more they're not going to feel alone, because we are really in a culture where mental illness, and I want to really address physical illness, can make it to where you can't go to church and you're stuck in the house. So allowing this ability to have technology so we can just sit and go, wow, and just feed ourselves these resources is so helpful.
What do you tell people that are struggling to find their path? And they're not quite sure. Maybe they've tried a couple things and it just hasn't worked out, right? Maybe they've gone to a doctor that just didn't tell them what they wanted to hear, or didn't deliver information the right way. What kind of advice would you have for them if they're just kind of stuck and they know that there's an issue, but they just don't know what to do about it?
Sometimes the process just takes longer, and you really just have to have the hope that if you just wake up and take your baby steps, and just go to the next doctor or go to the next place and just do it and give it another try. Like, you're gaining strength. Just like when you go to the gym and you can't pick up a weight because you're so weak and you've never been there. 2 pounds is a lot. And then, 4 months later, you're at 5 pounds, 10 pounds because you strengthened yourself. So really just continuing on, even when you don't feel like it, I would say is really the hope key.
If you or someone you know needs to chat with somebody, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Or you can log on to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention at afsp.org. If you need prayer, reach out to us. Danielle and I would love to pray for you. riversofloveministry.com or fieldevangelist.com.